Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And right off the bat, if you love breaking down the uncompromising strategy, the high-stakes drama, and, just the sheer physicality of international rugby, you need to hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession right now.
Absolutely.
Because we are bringing you exclusive high-level analysis all season long. And, well, you really do not want to miss it.
No, you don't.
So imagine being told you have to face the All Blacks 4 weeks in a row.
Oh, man. Just brutal.
Right. And now imagine that immediately after surviving that absolute gauntlet, you have to fly, 8,000 miles to an NFL stadium in Baltimore to play them a fourth time?
Yeah.
And then you completely flip the squad to fly halfway across the globe to Perth. I mean, that is the reality we are looking at today.
It's honestly wild just saying it out loud.
It is. So for today's mission, we're taking a 10-minute deep dive into something that has the entire tactical rugby world analyzing, every single variable. We are unpacking Springbok coach Erasmus's absolute master plan for a jam-packed 2026 season.
And jam-packed is putting it mildly.
Exactly. We're pulling this breakdown from a highly insightful report by Craig Lewis over at the South African. The Springboks are they're staring down the barrel of a grueling 13-match schedule.
13. It's unprecedented.
Right. And with the 2027 Rugby World Cup looming, Erasmus has to execute this incredibly delicate balancing act, right?
Mm-hmm.
He has to win massive high-stakes tests while systematically, blooding new talent.
Yeah, and that's the real trick, isn't it?
It is. So to you listening right now, get ready, because we are going to look at the pure genius of this split squad system Erasmus is deploying. It is a wildly ambitious undertaking.
It truly is. I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that this is far more than just, an administrative calendar or a standard fixture list.
Yeah.
It is a high-performance physiological chess match. Like, what Erasmus is attempting to engineer here is ultimate battle-hardened squad depth.
But without losing, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Without sacrificing a single ounce of the Springboks' inherent winning culture. Because physically, you cannot physically or mentally play the same starting 15 guys 13 times in a modern international season.
Oh, definitely not.
The collision metrics alone make it totally impossible. But the trick is managing that physical reality while still peaking for a World Cup the following year.
Right. So let's get into the actual mechanics of how he pulls that off, because to understand the long game, we really have to look at how Erasmus plans to set the baseline and, establish dominance right out of the gate.
Yeah, the early season.
Exactly. The season kicks off on June 20th against the Barbarians at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium in Kruberha. Lewis's report notes the squad will be a highly specific mix. We're going to see first-choice stars who just, desperately need game time, paired alongside younger players the coaches want to evaluate in a live environment.
Which is so crucial.
Right. And then, right after that, July 4th and July 11th, we hit the first two Nations Championship tests. England at Ellis Park in Johannesburg and Scotland at Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria.
Massive games.
And for these two, Erasmus is reportedly deploying the absolute strongest possible side. I mean, it feels a bit like a Broadway director holding a dress rehearsal with the understudies to work out the technical kinks before bringing in the A-listers for opening night.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
But I have a fundamental question about that Barbarians game.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the goal is to evaluate youth, doesn't mixing rookies with rusty veterans against a wildcard team like the Babas risk early cohesion? I mean, the Barbarians play such a chaotic, unstructured game.
Oh, totally chaotic.
Right. So aren't you just setting a rookie fly half up to fail if he's trying to organize a defensive line against total unpredictability?
Well, see, that is precisely why it is such a brilliant evaluation tool.
Wait, really? How so?
Yeah, because you are looking at it from the perspective of a highly structured test match. But Erasmus is looking at it as a physiological and psychological crucible.
Oh, I see.
The chaos you mentioned is the entire point. When a rookie steps onto the pitch against the Barbarians, all the suffocating, rigid tactical pressure of a Six Nations-style arm wrestle is just stripped away.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You get the raw speed and the intense contact of international players, but in a completely broken field scenario.
Yeah.
So it tests a young player's pure instincts.
Right, like what do they do when the plan falls apart?
Exactly. Can they read the game when the defensive system breaks down? Can they communicate with a veteran next to them when the play is completely fractured?
Hmm.
It actually builds confidence because it forces them to rely on their fundamental skills and their raw athletic ability, rather than just panicking over a missed tactical script.
Okay, I see. It's an instinct check before the real tactical warfare begins.
Right on.
But that brings me back to the England and Scotland tests. If the whole underlying goal of 2026 is blooding new talent for the 2027 World Cup, isn't playing the established veterans against England a wasted opportunity?
Wow.
Like, why not throw those rookies into the fire immediately at Ellis Park and just see what they're made of?
Because in South African rugby, you have to buy the political and internal runway to experiment.
Oh, right.
And the currency you use to buy it is winning. Securing strong, dominant early results against powerhouses like England and Scotland is absolutely essential for the coaching staff.
Because the fans are so demanding.
Exactly. You know how intense the South African rugby public is? They expect victories, especially at home on a high volt.
Yeah.
If Erasmus drops a home series against England by experimenting too early, the public and media pressure becomes, deafening.
Oh, they would tear them apart.
They really would.
No.
You cannot rotate heavily later in the season if you are coming off back-to-back home losses. By putting out the strongest team at Ellis Park and Loftus, utilizing that suffocating altitude advantage and the sheer intimidation of those stadiums, they secure the wins, they satisfy the public, and they bank the capital needed to take massive risks in August and September.
You buy the right to experiment by putting points on the board early. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So once that early dominance is established and the capital is in the bank, the schedule just becomes completely brutal. The physical reality of August makes playing an A-team impossible, which forces a radical pivot in roster management.
Completely radical.
Now, before we get into the absolute gauntlet that is the midseason, this is the perfect time to ask you, our listener, to hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession. And I want you to actively join this conversation right now. Drop a comment below. Do you think this split squad strategy is brilliant forward-thinking management, or is it just too risky when you are facing top-tier opposition? We really want to hear your thoughts and opinions on this approach.
Yeah, it's a huge debate.
So let's look at this mid-July to September block. On July 18th, a squad facing Wales at Hollywood Bets Kings Park in Durban is already being labeled by the media as a quote-unquote B team.
Oof.
But I really have to push back on that terminology. Is calling them a B team a dangerous psychological trap, or is it actually just a testament to South Africa's insane talent pool right now?
I mean, it is absolutely a disservice to the depth of the current system, and frankly, it's lazy media shorthand.
Totally.
Players stepping onto that pitch in Durban to face Wales would comfortably walk into the starting 15 of almost any other Tier 1 nation on Earth.
Without a doubt.
Erasmus does not view them as a B team. He views them as an integral part of the broader Springbok ecosystem. Labeling them implies a massive drop-off in quality, which just it isn't there anymore.
Right.
They run the exact same defensive systems. They run the same attacking shapes. But your point about the upcoming gauntlet is where that ecosystem is pushed to its absolute structural limit.
And what a limit it is. August 22nd to September 12th, 4 consecutive tests against the All Blacks, 4 times in 4 weeks.
Insane.
It really is. They start at Ellis Park, then move down to sea level at the DHL Stadium in Cape Town, then back up to altitude at the FNB Stadium in Johannesburg, and finally they board a plane and fly across the world to play the 4th test at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, USA.
Yeah.
And the report says minimal experimentation is expected for those first 3 All Blacks tests because of the high intensity and the total lack of breaks. Looking at this schedule, managing this roster is essentially like managing a starting pitching rotation in baseball. You can't throw your ace every single night because his arm will literally fall off. Erasmus is basically building a 5-man pitching rotation, but for international rugby collisions.
That is a fantastic analogy, actually, because it gets right to the physiological mechanics of the sport. It is a medical and physical impossibility to play the exact same starting 15 for 4 straight weeks against New Zealand.
Right.
When we talk about collision dominance, the sheer force generated at the breakdown, the massive tackle impacts, the cardiovascular output required in a Springboks All Blacks test, it physically breaks down the human body.
The toll must be unimaginable.
It is. You physically cannot repair the micro tears in muscle tissue within a strict 7-day turnaround when the intensity is that high. By the time you reach the 3rd week at FNB Stadium, it's no longer about tactics. It's about central nervous system fatigue.
Wow.
The body simply stops firing its fast-twitch muscle fibers at the same rate.
And the travel certainly doesn't help, right? Moving from the Highveld down to Cape Town, where the air is thicker and the pitch often feels heavier, than right back up to Johannesburg.
Exactly. The altitude changes alone wreak havoc on recovery protocols. Your body has to constantly adjust its oxygen processing. That's why those first 3 matches being in South Africa is so critical.
Because they're at home.
Yeah, the travel toll is minimized as much as functionally possible. They are banking on the altitude in Johannesburg and, the familiarity of the home crowds to fuel that primary squad through the physical depletion.
They need that energy.
They really do. They need to win those home games because what comes next defies standard rugby logic.
The Baltimore test. Playing a potentially wounded, desperate All Blacks team in a massive NFL stadium.
Yes, and this is where the genius of the pitching rotation comes into play. If we connect this to the bigger picture of the split squad system, that Baltimore test acts as a massive strategic luxury, provided they get the job done at home.
Right, if they already won.
Exactly.
Yes.
If the Springboks win 2 or all 3 of those home tests against New Zealand, Erasmus has a golden opportunity. He can fly a heavily rotated mixed squad to the United States. He gives his battered core leaders, the guys suffering from that central nervous system fatigue we just talked about, a desperately needed rest.
That makes a lot of sense.
Meanwhile, he tests his fringe players against an angry New Zealand side in a completely neutral, unfamiliar environment. You cannot simulate that kind of pressure in a training camp.
No way. It's a trial by fire. You're
Yeah.
putting them on a plane, flying them 8,000 miles, putting them on what might be synthetic turf in an NFL stadium, dealing with weird sight lines and saying, okay, deal with the All Blacks.
Good luck, right?
Exactly. Which brings us to the final stretch of the year. Coming off the emotional and physical high of that All Blacks series, the squad's depth is going to face its ultimate stress test across completely different hemispheres. On September 27th, it's a one-off test against the Wallabies at Optus Stadium in Perth.
Yeah.
And the sources say a host of first-choice players will be completely rested for this one.
Which makes total sense from a high-performance standpoint.
Yeah.
Even though Perth often feels like a home game away from home for the Springboks, given the massive South African expat community there, it's still a brutal travel undertaking right after a U.S. tour.
Oh, absolutely.
The time zone jump from the east coast of the U.S. to Western Australia is punishing on the circadian rhythm. By resting the first-choice players, Erasmus is essentially testing the system's ability to operate independently of its superstars.
Right. And then the logistical nightmare continues as we move into the November Nations Championship. They play Italy on November 7th at a venue to be confirmed, then France on November 13th at the Stade de France in Paris, and Ireland on November 21st at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin.
Those are heavy matches.
Super heavy. And the whispers are heavily suggesting these games will be used to expose even more young players to Northern Hemisphere winter conditions.
Wrong.
But if they make the finals weekend on November 27th to 29th at Allianz Stadium in Twickenham, they will revert back to their absolute strongest possible team. I am marveling at the sheer logistics of this. It's like a rubber band stretching to its absolute physical limit across the globe.
That's exactly what it is.
You've got players recovering in South Africa, players flying to the U.S., a squad isolating in Australia, and then a grinding wet weather winter tour of Europe. How does a team maintain its core identity, its fundamental Springbok DNA, when the roster is essentially completely flipping between Baltimore, Perth, and Paris?
Well, that is the true magic trick that Rassie Erasmus and his coaching staff have been perfecting for years.
Yeah.
They have completely decoupled the culture from the individuals.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the Springbok identity isn't tied to the specific 15 men wearing the jerseys on a given Saturday. The culture is the system itself.
Right.
It's the physical standards, the communication protocols, the absolute clarity of role execution. By forcing the broader squad to handle these incredibly hostile environments, facing the Wallabies in Perth, dealing with the deafening French crowd in Paris, going to Dublin to face a highly structured Irish team in the freezing rain, without the safety net of their primary starters, he is forging a battle-hardened collective.
So if things start going wrong in Paris, the younger guys can't just look around for Sia Kolisi or Pieter-Steph du Toit to bail them out with a miracle turnover.
Exactly. They have to figure it out themselves in real time. They have to exhibit tactical autonomy. And this all ties directly back to the ultimate mission, the 2027 World Cup in Australia. We all know how World Cups work. Injuries happen, suspensions happen, form drops. When a crucial starter goes down in a World Cup semifinal, Erasmus doesn't want to bring in a nervous rookie who has only ever played garbage minutes against Tier 2 nations.
No, you want someone ready.
He wants to bring in a guy who stared down the All Blacks in Baltimore, or silenced the crowd in Perth, or ground out a wet weather win in Dublin. By the time that Twickenham final rolls around in November 2026, the quote-unquote next man up is no longer a rookie.
They're a veteran.
Right. They're an international veteran who has seen every tactical style and every environmental challenge the sport has to offer.
That completely reframes how we should look at this schedule. The heavy rotation isn't a weakness or a concession to fatigue, it's a weapon.
A massive weapon.
They are using the sheer, terrifying volume of the 2026 calendar not as a burden to be survived, but as a meticulously crafted laboratory for 2027. We're looking at an era of international rugby where possessing that level of depth isn't just nice to have, it is the absolute only way to survive a 13-match season.
It is the new baseline for Tier 1 success. But, looking at the sheer scale of this ambition, it brings up a broader implication that I think is worth pondering long after we wrap this discussion.
Okay, what's that?
If Erasmus successfully pulls off this massive 13-match split squad system, and it culminates in retaining the World Cup in 2027, does this force World Rugby to completely rethink the international calendar?
Oh, wow.
Are we currently witnessing the death of the traditional 30-man touring squad for all Tier 1 nations moving forward? That's because if South Africa proves you need 45 to 50 battle-ready players to survive a modern season, the entire financial and logistical model of international rugby tours might have to change forever. We might see a massive widening of the gap between unions that can afford a 50-man ecosystem and those that cannot.
Oh, wow. The death of the traditional touring squad. That is a massive paradigm shift. If South Africa writes the blueprint, everyone else is going to have to find a way to fund and manage 50-man squads just to keep up. That is a phenomenal thought.
And I'll add one final puzzle piece to that.
Sure.
Think about this. If the so-called B team, or the rookies, massively overperform in hostile environments like Perth or Durban, does that create a positive selection crisis for Erasmus?
Oh, right.
Like potentially permanently unseating some of the established veterans before 2027.
That would be wild. A real changing of the guard right in front of our eyes. Well, listener, that is exactly what I want you to hit the comments section for. What do you think about the future of the game? Does this split squad strategy force a total rethink of the international calendar? Get down there, share your thoughts and opinions on this impending selection juggling act, and let us know what you think the long-term fallout will be.
Can't wait to read those.
And of course, for our third and final reminder today, if you enjoyed this tactical breakdown, make sure to subscribe to Rugby Obsession so you never miss a moment of the action. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.